Sydney Virgin says tips for separation anxiety for a recent adopted dog. Okay, so separation anxiety, this one's a little bit more specific than general anxiety, like we were asked before by people. So getting into separation anxiety, what I find is that separation anxiety comes from not a dog that can't be separate from the owner, but an owner that can't be separate from the dog. Right? So separation anxiety, like we just talked about in the last question, is a 50-50 rule, right? So 50%, what am I doing that's contributing to the problem? So let's break down a couple of things here. Is your dog always following you around the house? Is your dog 100% of the time on the couch with you if you're sitting on the couch? Is your dog 100% of the time on the bed with you if you're laying on the bed? Is the dog never in a crate or never isolated from you in any way when you're home? Are you petting your dog every single time they come up to you and nudge you? Are you smothering the dog with love and affection immediately upon coming home from work every day, right? All of these things do one very simple thing. They create contrast between being immediately with you, immediately right next to you, and being away from you. So one is the greatest thing in the world to the dog. The other signifies nothing but restraint from the greatest thing in the world, right? So separation anxiety doesn't start with when you're gone. Separation anxiety starts with what's going on when you're there. Have you ever went longer than an hour when you're home without interacting with your dog? If you haven't done that, that's a problem, right? Because what's gonna happen is the first time you go to try to remove yourself and put that dog into a crate or leave because the dog has never had an extended period of time longer than a couple of minutes without getting interaction from you, they're gonna start freaking out. Now, some dogs can handle this, some dogs cannot handle this. Like we talked about earlier, there are dogs that are genetically just sound and stable and don't have problems, and they're really good, and you can do anything with them and you're not gonna have a problem. And then you have dogs that are genetically anxious, right? And those genetically anxious dogs get reliant and glued to all of those things that we're doing, which exacerbates the issues that we're having with them, right? So a couple things you need to do for separation anxiety. One, anytime you leave the house and come back, I don't care if it's for an hour, I don't care if it's for 3 hours, I don't care if it's for a full day at work. When you get home, let your dog out of the crate. Take them out to go to the bathroom. But from the minute you let them out of the crate, while you're doing all of that, you're enforcing 20 minutes of no touch, no talk, no eye contact. What's gonna happen is your dog's gonna come out of the crate and they're gonna push you, and push you, and push you, and push you for attention. They're gonna push you for some sort of response, and you have to ignore it. And what's gonna happen is after a week of doing that, 1 week of doing that, you're gonna see your dog's gonna come out of the crate, and your dog's gonna be excited, obviously, because they're excited to be out of the crate, but they're gonna go find another way to occupy themselves. They're gonna go pick up a toy. They're gonna go run around the yard and get some zoomies out and stuff like that. But they're not gonna be reliant on that affection from you because they realize no matter what, they're not getting it. This is something I do with my dogs every day when I get home from work. And what I do is I create less contrast. Being out of the crate isn't super, super exciting just because I'm home, right? You're out of the crate, you can be excited about it, but you're not getting anything from me, right? So that's number one thing that you need to do right off the rip here. Let's break down the second thing here. If you're having massive separation anxiety issues with your dog at home, you should be monitoring all of your interactions with the dog, right? You don't have to write them down on a piece of paper, but you need to make mental notes of every single time you are physically interacting with your dog. What are you reinforcing? Who is in charge of that social interaction? Are you possibly reinforcing something that you don't want, right? Is the dog in an anxious state of mind and you're petting the dog to try to console them, which on the contrast is you are reinforcing that anxious state of mind? Is the dog in a position where, you know, every time they walk up to you and they nudge you on the hand, you scratch their head, which is getting them in a state of mind where they're dictating, oh, I can get affection out of this person. I can give them a command, which is that head nudge or that paw or whatever it is that makes them give me attention in that situation, right? Those are all things that we do not want. So you gotta start monitoring all of those interactions in your day-to-day with your dog. You gotta start monitoring them and making sure that you're skewing things where the dog is learning to just do their own thing for a little bit. Thing number 3 you need to be doing is using a crate. Anytime you leave the house, the dog needs to be in a crate. Periodically throughout the day, you need to put the dog in a crate, right? Your dog needs to learn how to be away from you and be okay with that, right? by addressing all of those things we just talked about, you've addressed the human side of the equation, and you've made sure that you're not doing anything to make anything worse, right? Now we do the training side of the equation, right? We do the other 50% of it, which is starting to establish rules and consequences. Do you have a really good bed stay taught where you could start to create that forced separation without putting the dog in a crate? Can I get my dog to hold a bed stay for an hour in the corner and see me off doing all sorts of things, but learn that they don't need to be a part of all of those things? Do I have the ability to tell the dog no for when they start getting anxious and pawing at me looking for help, or scratching at the crate door, barking excessively in there or anything like that, where I could tell them to knock it off and chill out? And if I can start interrupting that sequence of escalation and patterning the things that I want, what we see is that separation anxiety gets down and down and down and down and down until ultimately you're in a place where the dog can control themselves. So separation anxiety is a lot. There's a lot that goes into it, but those are some of the key steps with it.